Good morning.
Morning, everyone. Happy fall.
As you're joining us and getting settled, if you wanted to pop into the chat and let us know where you're joining us from, since I know we have, since this is brought to you by Central Valley Regional HR Hotline, I know we have a lot of real estate we're covering. So let us know where you're joining us from. And as always, let us know if we have any CEA members in the house so we can shout you out.
Morning, Steve.
Victory Village. I like that. I like that name. Ooh, CEA member. All right. Awesome. I see our participant count still climbing a little bit, so we're going to give it another little bit to allow people to get in and get settled here. Then we'll get started. Pine Grove. Where's Pine Grove? These names. Oh, near Jax. Okay. Thank you, Dorothy. Okay. Excuse me. Fall also means my allergies switch from pollen to
Yeah.
whatever's blooming in the fall. It's a year-round experience here in California. All
Same.
right. I know we have a lot of ground to cover. So let's get started today. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to Designing an Employee Retention Culture. Today is brought to you by the Central Valley Regional HR Hotline. My name is Anna Manzano. I am the Digital Media and Event Strategist here at the California Employers Association. Before we officially begin today's training, I have just a couple of details to go over with you. Your audio will be muted during today's training, but Keisha will have a lot of opportunities to engage directly today. If you have any questions pertaining to today's presentation, you can type them into the chat box at any time, and we'll try to address them as we go. Keisha has a full training today, but I'll be trying to help her manage those questions as best as I can. Handouts for this training, those were sent in the reminder email yesterday. If for some reason you maybe registered after I sent them, or they may be in spam, but if you need them resent, please put your email into the chat box and I'll go ahead and get them sent out to you as soon as possible. Last but not least, we do have a survey. So because your feedback is incredibly important to us, I would very much appreciate the 2 to 3 minutes if you could take to share some feedback after today's presentation. And that those results that you share with us really help us to continue to develop and improve on our trainings and our entire suite of resources through CEA. So again, today's training is sponsored by the Central Valley Regional Hotline, and you will see on your screen right now a bunch of different numbers that you can call, find your county, and all kinds of different guidance that you're available to access through those hotlines, all for free. So again, thank you to Central Valley Regional HR Hotline for sponsoring today. And I have the great privilege of introducing our speaker, Ms. Keisha Hansen, who is our Learning and Development Director here at the California Employers Association. I know we have a ton of information to cover, so Keisha, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Anna. Again, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. And I was asking about fall weather because I'm down in Southern California, and we're just starting to get a little bit of fall weather. I went outside on my balcony this morning and I felt a little brisk air and it was really exciting. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that and we'll all feel a little bit cooler after that hot summer. So if you are joining us for the first time and very briefly aren't familiar with California Employers Association, we are a human resource association. We've been in business for over 40 years. We work with employers throughout the state of California, and our goal is really to provide peace of mind with the HR compliance solutions we provide, any training, recruiting services. We even offer executive coaching. So if any of that piques your interest and you're not a member, feel free to give us a call and find out more. And we want to give our lawyers peace of mind this morning by letting you know that I am not a lawyer. So this training should not be relied upon as legal advice. It's purely educational. If you do need to consult an attorney, we do have several lawyers that we partner with at CEA throughout the state. So you can give us a call and hopefully we can refer you to one. So digging in, we only have an hour on this topic, designing an employee retention culture. So some of the things we're going to touch on while we're together is kind of some main reasons why are employees quitting? Why are they continuing to leave businesses and organizations? Which is really important to know. What employees want at work. Our workforce is really evolving right now, post-pandemic, with different work models, with people wanting different things, with having newer generations coming in. So we want to really know, what do our employees want at work, our current employees, so that we can retain them, and new employees coming in. Also, we'll talk a little bit about increasing employee engagement. One of the major reasons people leave tends to be they're not engaged at work. And there can be multiple reasons why. And then just some additional retention strategies. And as Anna said, this is a webinar, but you do have access to the chat box and you can ask any questions. We'll do some polling just to get your feedback on that. But really, it's an opportunity, if you do have some expertise in some of these areas or have some strategies that have worked well for your organization, we want to hear about it. And your colleagues and peers want to hear about it who are on the line as well. So I'm going to start out with a poll to get you engaged and really kind of hone in on what are your current challenges with retaining employees. And I'm pulling it up right now, so it should be popping on your screen. And this is multiple choice, so you can put more than one. If none of these apply, you can put it in the chat because you may have something that none of us are familiar with that is really affecting you in your business. But you're answering right away. Staff shortages still, even though they're saying that the Great Resignation is over, people are still thinking of leaving jobs and are leaving jobs. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Recruiting qualified candidates, employee relations. Yeah, we're all still kind of reeling from the post-pandemic. Some people are going back to the office, and that's creating some tension because people kind of forgot how to interact with each other in a professional and respectful manner. We've certainly heard about that from some of our members. In terms of having employee relations. Okay, I think I captured all of it. So let's show. So a tie. So you're having staff shortages, which means that you're having a hard time recruiting qualified candidates for the job. And then 43% of you say employee relation issues. So you're not alone. I mean, again, we work with employers throughout the state of California, and these are things that they've been sharing with us as well. So hopefully we can provide at least one thing that will help you in terms of getting more qualified candidates with your shortages, kind of redesigning your work culture to appeal to our current generation, but even those coming in. So as I said, they've officially or unofficially determined that the Great Resignation is officially over as of April 2023. There has been kind of a lull, but then there was a spike in May. So they're saying the resignation is over, not quite as much as 2022. If you see the stats here from 2022, we had over 50 million people voluntarily quit. So it was a little bit higher than 2021. And even though we're seeing kind of a slowdown, it doesn't mean that your employees aren't still thinking about it. So according to LinkedIn, at the end of December of 2022, 61% of American workers, and these are people who are fully employed, were thinking about quitting their jobs. So they're still keeping their eye out, and it's very easy to do, right? We all have smartphones. We can all see what's going on, what opportunities are out there. And even there's been a huge rise of the gig economy. So employees who are currently employed are having side hustles, right, to increase the number of jobs, the amount of money that they make, to close the gap maybe in the inflation, the rise of inflation. 16.7% of the U.S. has gig employment or gig positions, so to speak, and it's estimated to generate around $455 billion this year in 2023. So thinking, why are people still thinking of leaving? And why is the gig economy appealing to some people? Well, there were studies done, and most people, again, it's because they need more money to cover those gaps. They want their own schedule, right? Dictate their own schedule. And if we haven't heard it enough, as a result of the pandemic, people have really decided they want more flexibility in their work life, right? They want either a hybrid schedule, maybe a remote schedule, or some sort of flexibility if they have to be on site. And one thing that we've seen, and I have been a recruiter as well as a trainer for CEA and a lot of our members in the last few years, if you put that you had some sort of flexibility, and even if you can't, again, if you have positions that need to be on site, they need to do their job in front of customers or with parts and tools that they can't do from home, they're wanting some sort of flexibility. And if you put that in a job posting, you're going to get 7 times more candidates if you have some sort of flexibility available. So these are some of the reasons people are shifting, in addition to their full-time jobs, to a more flexible schedule, also being their own boss, not having to report to anyone. And we all know that sometimes employees leave their bosses, they don't leave their company, right? That has a huge impact on employee engagement. And then one of the reasons was that people just wanted to do something fun and pass the time. And I'm assuming a lot of those might be people that didn't necessarily need a full-time job anymore. Some of our retired boomers and other maybe younger generations that aren't quite ready to get full-time in the workforce. But good, important things to know, because this is kind of our competition, right? We want to be able to compete with the gig economy and employees going elsewhere to find different opportunities. So when employees are leaving companies and organizations, according to a report done by McKinsey, again in 2022, the top 5 reasons are here. Number 1 on this one, and you can go to all different surveys. Gallup does surveys, Gartner does surveys, but most of these are pretty consistent. They might have a change in terms of sequence, but most of these are very consistent. Number 1 on this one was lack of professional development. So really an employee thinking there's nowhere else to go or learn and grow. And we're seeing kind of an evolution also in employees not necessarily wanting to move up the ladder, but they want to continue to learn and grow in their profession and in their professional careers. So that just means they want opportunities for additional professional development. Number 2 is not going to be a surprise to many of you: inadequate total compensation. So total compensation means maybe the employer couldn't go higher on a salary, but could there be wiggle room in terms of compensation and benefits and health and well-being, different stipends. Employers are doing different things. Number 3 is uncaring and uninspiring leaders. And I go back to the pandemic when employees really had more time to evaluate their companies and organizations. And especially during a time of crisis, they're really evaluating, gosh, are my leaders doing everything they can to support us during this crisis with all the changes that have gone into effect with the shifting to remote and hybrid work? Or are we getting all the tools and resources we need if we're on site working during the pandemic? And many people took a deep look at their employers and said, no, they're not. They don't really truly care about me as a person. And so a lot of people decided to look elsewhere. A lot of people were burnt out in their industries and so are transitioning into newer industries. And some people just didn't see work that was meaningful to them anymore. And that can be, maybe this isn't my career that I want to be in, or maybe it's like my company isn't really showing me that what I do every day is contributing to the overall success of the organization, right? I'm not hearing it from my employer or my manager that I'm really helping them be successful or how I'm being successful. So we all as humans want to be have a purpose to our work and what we do. And so that is another reason people were leaving. And then unsustainable work expectations with the staff shortages that many employers have, along with those that answered on the poll. With turnover and staff shortages, people are working longer hours. They're taking on additional responsibilities and meeting short deadlines for things. And we have the highest rate of burnout than ever before. So how do we shift this around? Because all of these things that were mentioned in this survey really hugely impact our employees' engagement. So important to know, what is employee engagement? Well, according to Gallup, one of the organizations that has traditionally done a lot of research on the workplace and how employees thrive in the workplace, their definition of engagement, if you see on the screen, is engaged. An engaged employee is someone who's loyal, someone who's really there, who's going above and beyond, who's loyal, who's really being productive, who's thinking outside the box, who's going above and beyond, and really wants to be there. They really believe in the mission and the values of the company and organization that they work for. And it usually shows up at the very beginning of a workplace, but think of some of those employees in your mind as you think of your own teams and departments. Who showed up during the pandemic? Who really stood out? Who became a leader even though they didn't have the title, or who was being innovative and thinking of new ideas and shifting, because many employers, we had to shift the way we did things during the pandemic, who really stand out. Those are the people who are really showing you that they're really engaged, that they really have committed to the company, and they really believe in the company. And that across the board, currently in the United States, is only 32%. Only 32% of our workforce is engaged. Then we have what Gallup terms the not engaged employees. And those are people who are still there, we're still showing up, but not necessarily feeling as connected to the company. And it may be because of some of those reasons we listed on the previous slide. Maybe they're not feeling that their manager or leaders really care about them or are showing empathy when they have challenges in the workplace or in their personal life. But how they show up is sometimes with absenteeism. They might be missing more work days, which means they might be more likely to leave because some of those work days might be going to an interview. But they're just kind of clocking in. And this is where we really advise, if you are in a management position, that you really have the opportunity to shift things around for those employees. If you ask them why they don't seem engaged or why they seem different, right? Because their attitudes might change. They might be more quiet than they used to be. They might just be showing that they're not giving 110%. And they used to previously be that person that goes above and beyond and was really committed and loyal to the company. So the 50% not engaged, this is where you really have that opportunity to connect with those employees, find out what can we do to support you, how can we change things around, or what's going on. And it may be completely outside of work. It may be something personal, but maybe we can help with schedules, or maybe we can help with workload, right? And then you have the actively disengaged, which is 18% of the workforce. And according to Gallup, those are the people who are showing up to work because they have to, but they are no longer committed to the workforce, the workplace that they are working at. They're unhappy and they insist on sharing that unhappiness with others. So this is the real danger zone. If you have those hangers on who maybe this job just isn't suited for them, they're just never going to excel, or they've just gone down the rabbit hole of just not being happy and just have that completely negative attitude 24/7. This is where we say release that talent to the competition, right? Because that actively disengaged employee is affecting the not engaged and the engaged employees, right? So if you keep that one person who's disrupting others and saying how miserable they are, it's going to impact them, right? It's really going to have that negative impact. And that's, you release them to the competition when you've done everything you can to get them to the engaged, right? Because we are an HR association. So you did everything you could, but they're just creating an unhappy and unhealthy work culture. So it's really an important part when we said some of the reasons employees leave their companies and organizations is due to their relationships with their managers. It's really important if you have a position of management that you're checking in with your employees, that you're paying attention. If you're seeing people go from extreme engagement to now I'm not engaged or now I'm actively disengaged, what's happening in our workplace? What's happening in our culture that's making that happen and occur? So another poll for you, just an estimate, right? If you do have a team or maybe a department that you work in, how engaged do you think your team is currently? Let me get back to that one so I can launch it. And this is single choice. So if you were to be asked, in 30 seconds, let me know, which I'm doing to you right now. Are they engaged? Are they not engaged? Are they actively disengaged? Or maybe you're just not sure. Maybe you're so busy as managers and leaders, many are, putting out fires or meeting those deadlines or helping with the people who are understaffed, right? Sometimes we're so busy filling in and doing all those daily duties that we're not checking in with our people and finding out how they really are. So yes, so we have a lot of opportunity here. Let me share the results. So 38% is not engaged. So that's that 50% of the workforce. So you're not alone. 50% of our workforce is not engaged. So this is really an opportunity to determine what can we do to make people engaged. And it's going to be individual to your team, to your department, to your workplace. If they're actively disengaged, again, if you have done improvement programs or all of those things and they're still not going to excel, it's probably time to release them or have that conversation with the managers or HR about maybe it's time to let them go and release them to the competition or to a better situation, right? We don't want to wish anybody unwell. But not sure means that's an opportunity for you to engage with your employees, right? And really say, gosh, how are things going? And maybe you have, but everybody's been busy recently, especially again, for those of you who have staff shortages and people who you're having a hard time finding people. You might be just so consumed with that because it is a full-time job. When you're looking right now in our current status of recruiting, it is a full-time job. And if that's not your full-time job, one, I feel your pain because I have been a recruiter, but two, maybe we need to bring in other people to help us with the duties, whether it's screening resumes, whether it's on the interviewing process, because it can take a lot of time right now to get the people that we really want. So now you've determined you have some not engaged, you have some engaged, which is great. And you want to see the opportunities for those who are engaged as well. We don't want to forget them because we want to keep them staying in the company. But what do employees want these days? And what we're finding is we do see a shift in people wanting a people-first culture. So I ask you to put in the chat, what does that mean to you when you think people-first culture? What would that look like? What does it feel like? Because it can mean different things to different people. So I want to hear your answers for that. But tying in with that is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is just us being aware as humans of our emotions, what triggers us, how we're perceived by others, how we manage ourselves, how we manage our time, how we manage our relationships. Are we aware when things are kind of, we had that foundation of respect and now it's kind of crumbling a little bit. We need to kind of catch in. So we have to have that social awareness so that we can tune in with our employees and find out what's happening. We mentioned purpose before, but most people want to have some meaning or purpose to what they're doing at their jobs. Flexibility, we talked about that. A commitment to health and well-being. Again, people are burnt out. They're working really hard or overworking, overcommitting, and that can lead to an impact on our health and our well-being and being stressed out. And that can change us from being engaged to not engaged. So are we looking out for that? And how are we doing that? Employees are also looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are the most diverse workforce we've ever been in the history of our population. And so our employees are looking to see that, especially when they're applying for jobs. They're looking to see that there is diversity represented within those companies, or that there is an effort to recruit a diverse workforce, and that there is inclusion, right? That the employees at these companies are really having their voices heard, that they have their opinions matter, and all of those bring purpose to our work, right? When we feel like we're valued, we're recognized, we're able to share our opinions and ideas, that gives us purpose at work. And then again, we talked about it being one of the number one reasons people leave, but professional development and growth. And one of the things as humans is we want to learn and grow and continue. And we might have been with a company 8 years or 10 years, but we still want to develop new skills, and we still want to continue to learn and grow, or else we can become stagnant, and we can become not engaged. So what some employers are doing is they're rethinking their work cultures and their work models. And we know as a result of the pandemic, that has shifted greatly as well. Employers have shifted either to a hybrid work model if they can. Some employers have 100% remote. Those that have on-site are trying to kind of work with their employees that are on-site employees in terms of creating some kind of flexibility, whether it be different types of shifts coming in at different times of the day or night, or having shorter days in the week. So maybe a 4-day schedule versus a 5-day schedule. So this is not going away, people, these different work models, but you have to determine what is right for your organization. And I was at a company the other day at an on-site, and they're all on-site employees. And this is in Los Angeles, where if you're familiar with traffic in LA, it's really bad. And they're currently returned to office. Everybody's on site. And at the end of the presentation, one of the executives was asking me about what are people doing. And I said, well, people are doing all kinds of things, but in general, employers are creating more of a hybrid workplace because that's what their employees want. And it really gave him pause for thought. And so I think that they were going to kind of reconsider, especially again, when you think of that commute in LA. You can go 7 miles in LA and it can take an hour. So those are some of the things that you're thinking about, where people are going to say, oh gosh, yeah, if you change a few of those things, that would keep me here. Another one that employers are considering is a change in compensation or benefits. And this was a survey done in 2022 saying that job seekers said that benefits are more important to them than before the pandemic. So 67%, that's pretty high. 79%, of course, think they could make more money by switching to a new job. And 80% believe that employers need to reevaluate the benefits they offer after the pandemic. So that's one way to consider what benefits and compensation are we not offering that we can afford, right? And maybe do a compensation survey with your employees to see what is most important. And I did read one survey that was saying the younger generations coming in were more excited about cell phone compensation or a stipend or reimbursement than they were with some of the benefits. And that's just what they were, where they were at with their generation and their age group. But for some of us, that is extremely important and becoming more important to everybody. So if you haven't done a compensation survey in a while or a benefits survey, that might be a good idea. Another thing is when we have those employees who are not engaged and they start looking for other jobs and then they leave, what happens is we're usually surprised and we're usually wondering why. And so we do an exit interview. But one of the cons of doing an exit interview is we can't change things for that person, right? They've already left. So what employers are starting to do is consider stay interviews. So again, taking even your engaged employees, taking your engaged and your not engaged employees and having either one-on-ones with them or creating some focus groups and saying, hey, we really want some feedback from you on what's working with the organization and what's not. Because we're shifting, employers are shifting too. Employees who have left are already shifted. They already went to another company, but we want to focus on those who are staying and see what we can do. And that can really benefit in terms of building trust with your employees, right? Having them feel heard. Maybe they have some opinions about what their health benefits are, what their compensations are, that can really help you set some strategies in place in order to design something that will, again, help retain those employees. It could be employee relations issue that they have with a coworker or a colleague that maybe you didn't see coming, or maybe they didn't feel comfortable sharing. That maybe this gives you the opportunity to, wow, oh gosh, I can do something about this. I can address this. We can work on this. We can solve this together. So stay interviews can be super helpful in helping to retain your employees, getting feedback from them. Those are the nuggets of knowledge and information that you want so that everybody's doing their best jobs. And then also, if it's gotten so bad, before you get to the point of an issue of harassment or discrimination, you're aware of the situation. So you can probably address it before it gets worse. We all know, we've all been there, hopefully not too often, but what happens when we sweep things under the rug at a company where maybe employees aren't getting along or they're having some issues, that it just escalates, right? And it impacts everybody. It impacts people who aren't even directly involved. So you want to be able to address those. And sometimes having a formal or informal, it can be a one-on-one, it can be just an informal, but maybe putting some questions in place so that you're getting the answers that you want to hear too. So here's some possible questions with your employees, especially those who might have been engaged and now they're kind of, not engaged anymore. They're just clocking in and out. What are you learning here? Why do you stay at the company? When was the last time you thought about leaving? What prompted it? What can I do to make your experience at work better for you? Now, one thing is you don't want to just pile this on to someone when you've never had these kind of conversations before, right? You want to create those moments and maybe start with people that you really do have that strong relationship with, that you're going to get an honest answer and they're not going to leave immediately just because you ask those questions, right? So kind of gauge your audience. The only other thing that is really something that you have to keep in mind is you want to make sure that you take action on the responses, right? And of course, people might say some outlandish things about a compensation that you just can't achieve. But some of the things there are going to be practical things that you can maybe change and you can address and you can resolve so that person can go from the not engaged to the engaged. So creating some questions in advance, knowing who your audience is that you're going to engage it, or if you're really comfortable, doing it with everybody in the organization to really gauge where everybody's at and how they're feeling. So some additional strategies for those that are still there or those that are coming on, because we know those of you who are short-staffed, you're going to find those people. We have faith that you're going to find those qualified candidates and you're going to hire them very soon. I have all the faith. But one thing that we consider at CEA as part of retaining great employees is getting it right from the start. So that means building a truly effective onboarding process that shows to boost retention by 82%, according to a survey done by Glassdoor in 2022. Also, something to know is 66% of employees will leave within the first 6 months of joining the company if they didn't get everything they needed within the onboarding process. So that means an orientation, a walkthrough of the company, or a meet and greet with all the departments that they're going to be interacting with. Of course, all the forms and requirements that you're going to need but really setting that person up for success. And I would even say onboarding starts with the first contact with a job candidate. And again, as a recruiter, sometimes the way we get in there and the way we get someone to respond to us is really treating that person well from the very initial contact, right? Treating them as that potential employee and really being trustworthy, observing the time that we're getting back to people, not leaving people holding because we have to get a hold of all the hiring managers to schedule the interviews because you have competition these days. So the process, most employees, this is according to a LinkedIn survey, most employees expect an interview process to only last about 2 weeks. Anybody getting people hired within 2 weeks? Then that's good, because that's what people expect. But we know things get in the way. And again, if this isn't our full-time job, sometimes we're getting a hold of those hiring managers and we're not getting back to the candidate. Maybe it can take 4 to 6 weeks to 8 weeks, especially if you have all those interviews in place, which is another pet peeve for job candidates, is too many interviews, right? So maybe that's something to reconsider. Is our hiring process streamlined really to facilitate a smooth process and to really highlight how effective and efficient our company and organization is? Because remember, those job candidates are really savvy these days. They have their smartphones, they're looking at reviews of companies and organizations, seeing what previous employees say about them, and they're really judging you to see if you're going to be a right fit for them. So really, it starts, in my mind, from the first connection and the interviews that job candidate receives, and throughout to the onboarding process. So with your onboarding process, obviously a new hire orientation can set the tone, really making that employee feel like you invested in them, right? You had some thought around bringing that person on and their first day, their first week, their first month, and what that was going to look like. And I ask this question a lot, but have you ever, and I want you to answer in the chat, have you ever started a job with barely any information? They practically gave you a binder, all your forms, set them down on a table, and proverbially said, good luck to you. Didn't even tell you where the bathroom is. Anybody have an experience like that? Hopefully not your current job, but a previous job where you just didn't feel like much thought had gone into your first day of being there. You weren't introduced to people. And what kind of impact does that or message does that send to a new employee if we're not even investing in those first days, right? So really giving it thought on how this process is going to be. And again, that's a lot of work for one person. So a lot of employers involve other people. It's not just the responsibility of HR. It's not just the responsibility of the hiring manager, but everybody can take a role in welcoming that new employee into that new environment. So being very welcoming, very inclusive. At CEA, we're mostly a remote and hybrid organization. So when a new hire comes on, especially for me, who's in Southern California, and a lot of my coworkers are in Sacramento, we make sure that everybody meets each department on their department's virtual meeting so that people can get insight into how those different departments work. Some employers use job shadowing to look for someone who does the equal job to see how it's going, implementing a buddy system from either the same department or someone from the organization who has been there a long time, who has a lot of expertise and knowledge, and then just having those frequent check-ins after the new hire orientation, making sure that you set that employee up for success, right? And again, because of everything that's happened in the last few years, sometimes we just need a body, but we can't look at it like that, right? We actually want a good employee, a qualified employee, and so we want to invest in that employee. And just curious, what do you consider the timing for an onboarding period? Is it 90 days? Is it 180 days? Is it a year? Because it can be all of those, right? It can really, depending on the role that someone has, maybe they're coming into a new industry. It can take them up to a full year to actually acclimate to that organization. So we really want to set that person up for success with our onboarding process. And these are some of the questions that we want to be able to answer for those new employees. Number one, what do we believe in around here? So what is the company's mission? And what do they believe in terms of processes that they do every day, systems that they've implemented, our employee handbook, right? What is our code of conduct? All of those things we usually do give to someone on the new hire. And that's information overload, right? They're not having their employee handbook sitting by their nightstand and they're reviewing it every day. So they're kind of relying on others, their managers, their coworkers, to kind of re-emphasize what it is we believe in around here. Number two, what are my strengths? How am I going to be of service in this job to others, right? So what are my duties? What are my responsibilities? And how am I going to shine utilizing my strength? Number three, what is my role? What are my duties? What are my responsibilities? And you think, Keisha, people, we talk to them in the interview, we talk about that. 50%, this is a survey done by Gallup, 50% of employees state that they do not understand what their role is after they have actually been hired, right? So we want to make it really clear, set those clear expectations of what it is someone's going to be doing on a day-to-day basis, how we're going to monitor that, what is the performance review like, when we're going to check in, all of those things is really important. That's how I'm going to know how to do my job best. And then number four, who are my partners? Who am I going to be working with on a regular basis? My colleagues, my peers, my manager, and do I have an opportunity to get to know those people? If we are working remotely from each other, do we connect on a regular basis? Do we have an internal messaging system that I can use with those people? Do we jump on Zoom calls? Who are those people that I can rely on to support me? And then what does my future look like here? And like I said, not everybody's looking to go up the ladder, but they want to know that there's a future, that they can expand their skills and responsibilities throughout the time they work with your company and your organization. So again, this is throughout the onboarding process. It can be the 90 days, it can be 6 months, it can be up to a year, but make sure that keep in mind that these things are what employees want the answers to, so that they can do their best work for you. And then encouraging employee feedback. Again, the regular check-ins, they don't have to be formal check-ins, but just informal check-ins with your newer employees to make sure that you're giving them that clear expectation that their onboarding experience provided them with everything they needed, their job description, their responsibilities. They have a clear vision, understanding of the company's vision and mission. They know who to contact when they need support. They've been introduced to managers from every department because again, even though they might not be interacting with those managers on a regular basis, they need to know what other departments do, and the managers from those departments are hopefully going to be able to speak to that. And then I feel well prepared to succeed in my job, right? And if they're not, these are all really positive statements. But if they're not, then that's giving you the information you need in order to give them the tools and resources they need to do their best job. So another thing that's come up recently is in order to retain the employees that we have, and professional development was a major reason why people weren't leaving. And as a workforce, we have a lot of gaps in skills. Employers are looking to those employees who really are needing to upskill, to add skills to their repertoire in order to do their best work. And upskilling, again, as we said, we have that human need to learn and grow. It really can improve retention because it's showing our employees that we care, that we want them to continue to grow within our company, within our organization, within their career. It can boost morale when we've gained those skills, right? When we have some of those new skills that we were missing and we know are needed within the company in order to stay competitive as well. And it can create and encourage a culture of learning. Once we start investing in the professional development of our employees and they're feeling confident and they're feeling supported and they're feeling cared for, in terms of their careers, then we want to pass that on. Then we want to teach others. We want to share our knowledge with others, and that's when that culture of learning evolves. We also, when we're upscaling, when we're gaining those new skills and investing the time that our employees are learning those, we can gain a competitive advantage. And we can also attract new talent by listing that in our job posting that we do invest in professional development and upskilling. So one of the things when you're doing that is to know what skills we need. What do employers really need in 2023? And this is essential skills. It's a top 10 of essential skills. And of course, there's hard skills, and we have numerous industries here. So I'll leave that to you to figure out what of those you need. But here are the top 10. And just curious, of this top 10, I'm going to ask you, which of these is really important to you? And I kind of narrowed it down, and I'm doing another poll. Keep you engaged here, people. Which of these, and again, you can do multiple answers, but what skills do you currently need in terms of essential? And some of these are critical skills. Communication is a critical skill. It's one of our top requested trainings that we do at CEA. Leadership skills is critical, right? That we have those caring leaders who can inspire us and lead us through in times of change, in times of crisis. And we're still in a major time of change in our organization, in our workforce, and within all organizations. Okay, coming on strong. I love it. Good. So not a surprise to me, since it's our number one requested training, is communication, right? And it's a different world now because communication is virtual, because we're on Zoom meetings, because we're using internal programs, because we have on-site and we do have people in different locations, and just the preference of communication has changed. Leadership skills, that's not a surprise to me, because we do have a generation, our baby boomers, who many are retiring in leadership. And so our newer next generations are coming into those leadership positions. And many of us know that leaders aren't necessarily promoted because they already possess those leadership skills, but because they did well in their previous role. So we all need strong leadership skills. That was great. 50% critical thinking, right? We need to be able to solve problems. Who hasn't had to solve a problem or reshift or pivot during the pandemic and during the last few years? So it's important to have people with critical thinking skills who can ask for forgiveness, not permission, right? Taking the lead on things, really coming up with solutions. And customer service. I think all industries, we all have a customer that we need to address, and it's a different world. And so some of that is technology, but a lot of it is just having empathy and caring and knowing what our customers want. So these are great. You guys know. So hopefully you can put in some processes in place to help with that professional development, because now you see it's really important to employees as well. And another issue or challenge for a lot of employers, especially those who are working currently in a hybrid or remote culture, is how do we connect, right? How do we continue to build that connection with people when we are working hybrid, when we're not all in the same building? Maybe you even have employees out of state, or you're even globally. Depending on your industry, depending on your company. So how do we build that sense of connection? And a lot of our younger generations, especially Gen Z, who are just coming into the workforce, are saying, I miss that. I'm missing out on that. I want that connection. I want to be able to get to know my fellow employees and my colleagues. So looking for ways to connect at work. And one thing that means is on a regular conversation, right? The water cooler conversations that we used to have, running into people in the hallway, For some people, for some employers, that's in the past. So we have to come up with new ways to get to know our employees. And if you are one of those organizations that you do a lot of Zoom meetings, make sure you connect at the beginning of those Zoom meetings, because some of us go from one meeting to the next meeting and people don't even say hi to each other. And then you're missing out on connection. You're missing out on getting to know each other. When you have that new employee that you're onboarding, make sure that you introduce them in each meeting that you have with each department so that they can interact, so that they see that people are able to connect on a regular platform. Now at CEA, we have a smaller organization. We're only about 24. So our whole staff connects on Zoom every Monday at 9 a.m. And boy, during the pandemic was that impactful. That was so helpful for us to be able to share with each other what was going on, not only work-wise, because we had so many compliance rules and regulations changing, but just in a regular human way. What was going on in different people's areas, what was going on with their families, and also what were we watching on different streaming devices, right? Because we were all watching a lot of streaming devices. So now it's become a thing for us. We like to ask and share what we're watching on those streaming devices, what movies we're watching, what we're doing on the weekends, and it gives us that sense of connection. So if you don't have as many virtual meetings, maybe creating some committees where people from different departments can come together so they get to learn each other's communication styles, work styles, making strategic plans to have in-person events. If you don't normally have in-person events, we have 4 quarterly staff meetings in person. So we get, again, another opportunity to see each other and just to do things to connect, and not necessarily regarding work. There's mentoring programs. Again, this can be really helpful for your newer employees and employees who are just new to your industry maybe and really want to learn and grow in that industry. And if you have that expertise there, people who really want to share their knowledge, we can call that reverse mentoring, right? Kind of bring those different generations together. And lunch and learn programs. Food is always a great way to connect people. Anything else that you all are doing to foster that connection at work that might be missing because you're not there every day with each other physically. You're working in a hybrid model or a remote model. What are you doing to foster connection at work? Food trucks, bringing in the food trucks. Summer water slide. I've heard that when it was really hot. Summer water slide. Anything else anybody's doing? Great opportunity to share with your colleagues. So, as I said, the workforce is really evolving. It's becoming a more people-focused culture, and people want it to be more human focused. And we found this company called Work Human, which wrote a book on with the same title, Work Human. And we really like it because they have 3 pillars of how to make work more human and really easy to remember. Number 1 is thanking people. Number 2 is talking, communicating with each other. And number 3 is celebrating. When we thank people on a regular basis, that sends, it has a contagious effect, right? So when someone recognizes me for something I've done, even more so a peer than a manager or a leader, because to some extent we expect our leaders and managers to thank us, to recognize us for the work that we've done. But when a peer does it, we know it's genuine, we know it's authentic, we know it's sincere. And again, that just sends that positivity vibe out there. And then we all start thanking each other and recognizing each other and pulling each other up on the days that maybe we're not as engaged to when we are engaged. So as a company, we want to recognize people with just large and small contributions. It can be as simple as just thanking someone in person via an email. You can increase it to a gift card if it was something really outstanding, or you can have an employee recognition program. People really value that. People need to be recognized for what they're doing. And just know that we're all individuals, so we don't all need a shout out in front of 100 employees. that we're doing a good job. Some of us might just want to thank you from an email or a gift card or something that really means something significant to us. So thanking people is a simple thing, but we don't do it enough. Anybody here over recognized, get too many compliments, too much recognition, shout out, say, Keisha, I get too much. Not seeing anybody respond yet. And then communication, which a lot of us said we could use some upskilling in our communication. So finding ways to communicate effectively, really checking in with our people. If we sense that something is wrong, have that conversation, have that one-on-one meeting with someone, and then having those regular conversations just about the weather, just about what people did over the weekend, etc., builds that trust. So then people, when they do have challenges or issues, are going to be more likely to come to you and talk to you about those. And then celebrating the wins, the big and small. Life happens when we're at work. So we want to recognize if someone gets married, if they graduate college, if they bought a new house, something, if they had a baby, we want to recognize that, both personally and professional. And if there's things within our company that we want to recognize and add it to our holiday calendar, let's do that too, because we do want to be engaged while we're at work. When we're engaged, we're going to do better work. You're going to have better productivity. People are going to be happier. So these are some 3 ways that the company Work Human says is helpful in fostering that human connection. So it is a challenge right now, especially for those of you who are still looking for those top quality candidates. But you really do want to focus on how do you retain people? What are you going to do differently in order to retain your top employees? And that involves building that trust within your organization, nourishing those relationships you already have, focusing on what is the meaning behind the work, what is the company stand for, building recognition and feedback for people so their voices are heard, and doing all of those things will help you create that work-life balance that people are looking for. So any kind of flexibility you can offer is going to show someone that you truly care and that you want them to do their best work and you want to keep them there as an employee. And I think that's all the time we have. So I'm going to hand the baton back over to Anna. Of course, if you have any lingering questions, put them in the chat.
Food trucks and water slides.
Water slides. Yeah.
Sound pretty awesome. I'm gonna bring that to the next Monday meeting.
Okay.
Back me up on this, Melody and Keisha. Before it gets too cold to do any water sliding. Yes, so thank you again, Keisha, for sharing so much of your expertise with us in less than an hour. I don't know how our trainers do this so comprehensively, but they do. Thank you to the Central Valley Regional HR Hotline for sponsoring today. Thank you all for joining us live, or if you're watching us on a recording, thank you for sharing your time with us. We do have some training codes today. Let me copy those, pop those in the chat for you as well. And she's got them on screen. So however you're accessing us today, HRCI 638539, SHRM code 23-W52GF. And last but not least, I do have, as I promised, our amazing 2-minute survey that really does help us continue to develop and improve on our entire suite of resources, especially these live trainings like this. So if you can, either access that link or one should auto pop up after we close out here, and we'd really appreciate you taking the couple of minutes to help us out there. Thank you again, everyone, for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on the next training. Cheers.